I am obsessed with Henry VII right now, and I want you to be too. So let's look at a year when he absolutely crushed it and how the effects of that life-changing year completely altered the course of Tudor history. Has one year ever changed your life? It certainly did for Henry Tudor. A lot like the pivotal year of 1536 for his son, Henry VIII, 1489 is a year that will go down in Tudor history. Unlike his son, 1489's events actually leveled up the dynasty and catapulted the Tudors into the European spotlight. I'm Amy from Fare Thee Well, a dedicated Tudor enthusiast, and I'm here to find more Tudor fans just like you, so thank you for hanging out with me. Now, let's look at 5 hugely impactful events from 1489. Number 1, the signing of the Treaty of Medina del Campo. This alliance was between Isabel I of Castile, Ferdinand II of Aragon, and of course, Henry VII. Isabel and Ferdinand ruled a large part of the Iberian Peninsula, what we would now call Spain, and they were a powerhouse couple. Shrewd, politically savvy, and they wielded a powerful army. They were the exact allies Henry needed to gain credibility on the European scene. Now, this treaty was critical to Henry's foreign policy for a few reasons. First, it opened trade and lowered tariffs between the 3 kingdoms, which was hugely profitable. And number 2, it united all of their efforts if any of them went to war with France. And this was looking very likely in 1489 because France was aggressively trying to absorb the Duchy of Brittany. Isabel, Ferdinand, and Henry did not want this to happen because Brittany had such a prime location on the English Channel, and they were obviously very fearful that if France absorbed Brittany, they would gain more power and have more of a hold over trade, merchant ships, and a better capacity to invade. Number 3, probably the most consequential part of this agreement was that Spain promised not to harbor or support any pretenders to the English throne. And remember, in 1489, it was just 2 years prior that Henry had to defend his crown against the Lambert-Simnel rebellion. Lambert-Simnel was an imposter claiming to be Edward, Earl of Warwick, who actually had a really good claim to the throne because he was the son of a York prince, George, Duke of Clarence. And George, Duke of Clarence, was brothers to, of course, Edward IV and Richard III. Now, George, Duke of Clarence is the definition of a bad brother, but we're not going to get into that now because it is very complex. But ultimately, Edward IV had his brother executed for treason in 1478, and his son, Edward, Earl of Warwick, became an orphan. Now, little Edward, Earl of Warwick, was bounced around quite a bit until Henry VII came to the throne, and he did imprison him in the Tower of London because of the threat that he posed. Back then, if you weren't happy with Henry VII taking the throne, you could always back an imposter, and that's exactly what John de la Pole, Earl of Lincoln, did. He defected, came back, and led the rebellion against Henry VII, propping up Simnel as the rightful heir to the throne. Now, when Henry originally heard about the rebellion, he yanked Edward, Earl of Warwick out of the tower and kind of traipsed him through the city of London to show everyone that this was, in fact, the real Edward, Earl of Warwick. Unfortunately, word didn't travel that fast in 1487, so anyone outside of London still could have believed that Lambert-Simnel was the actual Earl of Warwick. Ultimately, Henry defeated the rebel army at the Battle of Stoke, and Isabel and Ferdinand kept their word and basically laughed in the face of any pretender who came forward after that, aka Perkin Warbeck. Having the prestigious kings of Spain watching his back was a huge coup for Henry and definitely spread the word that he was a rising star in Europe. And while the advantages of this union are vast, the most recognizable part of the treaty that we would know is that Isabella and Ferdinand betrothed their youngest daughter, Princess Catalina, to Henry and Elizabeth of York's son and heir, Arthur, Prince of Wales. Obviously, she later becomes Catherine of Aragon. This alliance provided some much-needed prestige for Henry's reputation, and I have to give him credit. His intelligence in handling the negotiations was pretty exquisite, in my opinion. Now we've wrapped up the Treaty of Medina del Campo, number 1 on our top 5 biggest events from 1489. Our second is also a treaty, the Treaty of Redon Henry had signed with the Duchy of Brittany. Now, Henry is really making his mark here with his foreign policy. He wants peace. He doesn't want to go to war, especially with France, because France was actually really incremental in his campaign to capture the throne of England. They gave him money and support, and without it, I don't know if he would have been able to beat Richard III at the Battle of Bosworth. Not to mention, England was still reeling from 30 years of civil unrest. This couldn't be too far off in the minds of the people. Henry wanted to support Brittany's independence from France for his own benefits, but also because of the loyalty he felt to Brittany's Duke, Francis II. Francis II, Duke of Brittany, had been very gracious and protective of Henry during his over a decade-long exile there. So Henry was very wisely restrained and tried to keep the peace between these two realms. So in February 1489, Henry signed the Treaty of Verdun, and in this he promised 6,000 troops to help aid them in their fight for independence. Unfortunately, after Duke Francis's sudden death, France did end up snagging the duchy by marrying Francis's heir, Anne of Brittany. So the third way Henry leveled up his dynasty in 1489 is by minting the iconic gold sovereign, England's first pound coin. Now, I am obsessed with the gold sovereign, so I am making another video specifically just on the gold sovereign, so be sure to check that out. Now, the gold sovereign was not only England's first pound coin, but it was the largest and heaviest gold coin ever minted. And it featured Henry in all of his regal splendor, sitting on a Gothic-style throne with his orb, his scepter, his coronation robes. Now, this would have sent a message that Henry belonged on his throne and had wealth and security all buttoned up. The fourth event that impacted the success of the Tudor dynasty in 1489 was the birth of their second child, Princess Margaret Tudor, who was born on either November 28th or 29th, depending on your source. Princess Margaret was another source of security for Henry's reign because princesses could be married off and form strong alliance between other foreign dynasties. As we know, Margaret did go on to marry the King of Scotland, James IV, and this event led to the union of England and Scotland. I think it's so fascinating that our current king, Charles III's ancestry can be traced all the way back to her. The final and hugely impactful event that Henry orchestrated in 1489 was having his son and heir Arthur created Prince of Wales. This sent a resounding message across Europe that the English throne was finally secure. Now, depending on which source you read, Elizabeth and Henry's pride and joy Arthur, named after the fabled King Arthur, was created Prince of Wales on either November 29th or November 30th. It was the same day that Princess Margaret was also baptized. So after 4 years on the throne, I think 1489 is the most impactful year of Henry's entire reign. But more importantly, what do you think? Do you think the year 1489 was the most important year? If not, let me know in the comments below which year you would choose and why. If you found this video interesting, would you please give the like button a little squeeze? It would definitely let me know that all my hard work and research and staying up late was worth it. And I really hope to make friends with you also. Please let me know where you're at, who your favorite tutor is, or anything else you want to tell me in the comments. And as always, if you found any incorrect facts or errors, please let me know in the comments. I'm always willing to listen and learn. That's why I'm here. I really hope I see you next time. Until then, fare thee well.